All right, let's dive right into this explainer. You know, if you look closely at the animal kingdom, it's actually like looking into a giant mirror that reflects our own human mind. Today, we are unpacking something called comparative psychology. Basically, it's the science of studying the rest of the animal kingdom to literally crack the code of human behavior.
For the longest time, we've kind of treated human and animal minds like entirely separate islands, right? We like to define our own behavior by our complex actions and our sophisticated language, while we tend to frame animal behavior around, well, raw survival and basic instinct. But here's the brilliant secret scientists have uncovered. These aren't isolated concepts at all. By comparing them side by side, we start to reveal these incredible, hidden cognitive bridges that actually connect us.
So, Section 1. What exactly is comparative psychology? Let's lay the groundwork. If we truly want to understand the evolutionary origins of human behavior, we absolutely have to look outside of ourselves. At its core, comparative psychology is the dedicated study of behavior across completely different species. And the goal here isn't just to catalog cool animal tricks. No, it's to pinpoint the precise differences and the core similarities between us and them. It operates on a pretty humbling premise, honestly. A lot of the behaviors you and I exhibit every single day, they have deep, shared evolutionary origins with the animals living all around us.
So when researchers step out into the field, or when they're in the lab, they are chasing some very specific goals. First, they want to map out the broad evolution of behavior over time. They're also looking for universal patterns, those fundamental survival mechanisms that practically all living creatures share just to adapt to harsh environments. And, perhaps most fascinating of all, they compare the inner workings of the mind. We're talking about how different species learn, how they form memories, and even how they experience deep, complex emotions.
Moving on to Section 2, the pioneers of behavior. Because, as you can imagine, a science this complex didn't just pop up overnight.
The story really kicks off back in 1859, when Charles Darwin planted the seed of evolutionary continuity. That was the radical idea that humans and animals are deeply, fundamentally connected. Fast forward a bit to the early 20th century, and we get John B. Watson introducing behaviorism, which focused entirely on observable actions. And then, B.F. Skinner takes the baton with operant conditioning. It is absolutely wild to think that Darwin's grand theories of evolution eventually paved the way for Watson and Skinner to use everyday, city-dwelling pests like rats and pigeons as the founding fathers of modern behavioral psychology.
Which brings us to Section 3, how scientists study animals. So, how do modern researchers actually conduct this science today? Well, it's a rigorous, systematic pipeline. Step 1 usually starts with plain old observation, just carefully watching animals navigate their natural habitats without interfering at all. From there, it moves into the experimental method. This is where researchers construct highly controlled environments, like intricate mazes or really specific learning tasks, to push cognitive limits. Finally, once all that data is gathered, the comparative method takes over. This is the absolutely crucial step of taking those isolated experimental results and mapping them across entirely different species to uncover universal truths.
When they're applying these methods, researchers really zero in on specific cognitive arenas. They'll test conditioning to see how an animal learns from consequences. They study memory retention, problem solving, complex social hierarchies, and entirely unique methods of communication. They even probe for the presence of genuine emotion. So whether it's a crow engineering a little tool to solve a multi-step puzzle, or primates navigating tricky social bonds, these aren't just quirky animal studies. They are vital insights that fuel our broader understanding of neuroscience.
Next up, Section 4, instinct versus learned behavior. Let's dive into the core concepts driving these studies, starting with the classic, age-old debate of nature versus nurture. Think about the last time you learned a brand new skill. It took practice, right? You had to work at it. Well, as it turns out, the way you learn through experience contrasts with pure inborn instinct in the exact same way it does for animals. Instinct is what drives those natural behaviors an animal just inherently knows how to execute from birth, like a spider instinctively knowing how to spin a perfect web. Learning, on the other hand, is entirely gained through experience and a whole lot of trial and error over a lifetime. Figuring out exactly where instinct ends and learning begins, that is literally one of the biggest, most critical puzzles in comparative psychology.
And this brings us to a really beautiful realization, a concept known as evolutionary continuity. It's a reminder of just how deeply intertwined we are with the rest of the natural world. Basically, this is the foundational idea that humans and animals share deep behavioral traits simply because we share a vast evolutionary timeline. We aren't entirely separate from the animal kingdom. Our minds exist on a continuum with it. Recognizing this shared heritage helps explain so much of why we act the way we do, especially when it comes to things like survival, social bonding, and learning.
Now let's look at Section 5, Limitations and Ethical Concerns, because as with any scientific endeavor, we definitely need a reality check on the boundaries here.
First, the real-world applications of this research are incredibly powerful. By comparing different species, we unlock profound insights into human psychology and the core architecture of our own mental processes. But the benefits flow both ways. This knowledge is heavily leveraged to improve animal training and significantly boost animal welfare. It allows us to build comprehensive behavioral theories that bridge the gap between animal and human psychology. Ultimately, it improves the lives of humans and the animals we share this planet with. A real win-win.
However, we've got to remain strictly impartial and recognize the scientific limits. Animals are not perfect human proxies. You can't just take a behavioral finding in a pigeon and assume humans operate the exact same way. The environmental and cognitive differences are just way too vast. Plus, researchers have to constantly weigh the value of the knowledge gained against strict ethical frameworks. It is absolutely crucial to ensure the well-being and humane treatment of animal subjects throughout any experiment.
So, based on everything we've explored today about our shared history, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Where exactly does animal instinct end and human cognition begin? When you act on a sudden impulse, or when you form a lifelong friendship, how much of that behavior is purely uniquely human, and how much is just the echo of our shared evolutionary past? It's a fascinating question, and one that's going to drive comparative psychology for years to come. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing the world around you, and I'll see you next time.